Today on Locked On Red Wings, simple mistakes prove costly as the Detroit Red Wings are thumped 6-2 by the Winnipeg Jets.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, and I am the color commentator for Oakland University D1 Hockey. And Scotty and I have a game to talk about that we absolutely do not want to talk about. It was a wet fart of a hockey game. That is the nicest way I can describe it without using curse words. But before we get to that, I got to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Scotty, before we get into the game, we should make it known that we know that Maatta was traded. I mean, obviously, if you follow us, you see that we posted a short and a graphic, but we will not be breaking down our thoughts on the Maatta trade on this episode simply because we have an entire game against the Winnipeg Jets to talk about, and our thoughts on Maatta will not change between tonight and tomorrow. So, our thoughts are out there. You can read our thoughts on social media or like on our YouTube posts, because we do make posts on YouTube as well. Wherever is easiest. If not, you can wait until our Friday episode where we talk about that and break down the preview against the Buffalo Sabres. But until then, we have a 6-2 loss against the Winnipeg Jets to talk about. Scotty, difference maker in this hockey game. In a game that was so infuriating for several different reasons, what was your difference maker?
Yeah, my difference maker was one specific goal in this hockey game. This was a game where at the end of the first period, it looked like it might get ugly, and it was it was a little sketchy and a little concerning of how much better Winnipeg looked than the Wings, and they got off to a really slow start. They applied no pressure. They barely had any shots at the end of the first period. Second period, they come out and they honestly played really good hockey. I was very impressed with how the Wings looked in the second period. I thought they were the better team on the ice for a majority of the second period. They were cycling better than they have in a long time. They actually had possession of the puck for a little bit. There was some depth players that were doing really well. Obviously, the top-end guys were producing goals. You had the DeBrincat goal. You had the Larkin goal. And you're down one there going into the second intermission. 10 seconds into the third period, Jeff Petrie turns the puck over on I don't even know what he was doing. Like, I genuinely, I have no clue what was going through his head there, other than like I'm hoping that it was just like he lost possession and the puck just kind of drifted off his stick there, because
he just did not play it cleanly off the boards. Like he was going as a right-hander, was playing the boards to his left. You have to pick the puck up off the boards on your backhand. It's a little bit more difficult. I've misplayed that 1,000 times, but I don't get paid millions of dollars to do that. So when I do that, it's like, well, I'm just a crappy men's league player. He's a professional. He needs to play that cleanly. He didn't. It goes right to the front of the net.
Yeah, it goes right to the front of the net and then off of Ben Sherratt's skate and into the back of the net. So our second pair on defense scored together. Like they literally get like Sherratt goal, Petrie assist, like literally scored on ourselves 10 seconds into the third period to make it a 4-2 game. And I don't think the team ever recovered. So that is my difference maker. I thought they actually had clawed their way back and were playing really, really well. And then all the wind out of the sails immediately after puck drop in the third period. And it ended up being a 6-2 final.
Yeah, I mean, to expand on that, right? Because that goal that was the backbreaker of this hockey game is part of my difference maker, which is simple mistakes. Simple mistakes just proved so costly in this hockey game. Because in this hockey game, at 5-on-5 was even pretty much throughout the entire game, believe it or not. Like, it's actually kind of insane if you watch this game. Like, okay, now Winnipeg has stretches where they're having pressure. Now Detroit has stretches where they get pressure. But the difference is when Winnipeg would get pressure, they would score. Or they'd burn us on a rush, and they would score. Detroit would get pressure, and nothing would come of it. Like, they scored twice on the power play, and we'll get to that, I'm sure, in segment 2, because that's a notable performer. That got working in this hockey game. But it's just simple mistakes proved so costly in this game. On the first goal against, right, it was it Gabe Vilardi from Kyle Connor, right? How could we forget? Kyle Connor had 3 points in the first period in this hockey game. Well, it was a 2-on-2 where Albert Johansson at the last second stopped paying attention to where the puck was, or stopped paying attention to where his guy was because he was watching the puck. And by the time he looked back at Vilardi was already so far past him he couldn't lift his stick. Goal. Second goal against was Pionk, who broke in from the blue line behind DeBrincat because DeBrincat looked at the puck, stopped watching where the guy he was covering on the point was. Pionk streaked down, got the rebound off the shot, a shot I don't think Lyon ever saw, buried it, goal. That was a minute 15 apart. You're already down 2-0. Third goal, Moritz Seider gets burned. How often does that happen? And I mean, like, overall, Seider had a fine game, but that was a very costly mistake, and a mistake we don't see someone like Seider make very often. But, you know, if we're going to call out a player, other players when they make mistakes, you got to call out Seider in that situation, and he let Kyle Connor just burn right by him and make a nice goal. So it's like you could go goal by goal by goal, and every single one is so easily preventable. Obviously, the Jeff Petrie one that you just mentioned is like the most obvious one in this hockey game. You have the momentum going into the intermission. You're down by 1 after scoring back-to-back goals, and then you don't play the puck cleanly off your own boards, throw it to the front of the net by accident, off your defensive partner's skate and into the net. And that's just... And then Lyon led into just absolute softies from the point.
Dude, yeah. That was it the 5th or the 6th goal? The one that tipped the top of his glove that one was tough, man.
It's just frustrating because in a game where I thought you played fairly even, it wasn't like back and forth, like it was like chunks at a time for both teams. But when both teams had their chances, just really frustrating because it was your simple mistakes that cost you. And to me, that's why it's a difference maker, which again plays into what you were saying with the Jeff Petrie thing, because that clearly was the biggest moment of the hockey game.
Yeah, and I think that's the most, like you kind of said at the beginning of the show, I think that's the most frustrating part is because we're going to look at this game and we're going to complain about a lot because they lost 6-2. Like, for all intents and purposes, they got blown out. Like, it ended up not even being a relatively close hockey game, but it was a 1-goal game through 2. Like, it should have been much closer than it was, and for a majority of the game it was a lot closer than it was. But the consistency of this team and its ability to just kind of fall apart is something that's been an issue for the last couple of years. I guess last year they kind of, to their credit, had a lot of comeback victories, especially early in the season. But it's one of those things where when you are, especially like, again, that early in the third period, like when you are gaining momentum and trying to get back into the game and you're taking advantage of opportunities, you're getting high danger. The defense was a lot better. They limited shots a lot more in the second. And then like 1 goal just completely unraveled the entire team.
Well, and I think part of it too is obviously the simple mistakes were proven costly, but Winnipeg does such a good job. They did to you what I praised Detroit's defense of being able to do for, a couple weeks here. Like, part of the reason why I felt they were winning is the Red Wings did a good job of limiting high danger chances. That was not the case in this hockey game. If you look at in fact, I'll pull up the heat map just for people who are watching on YouTube, have a visual representation of what I am talking about. This is something that we haven't seen a lot from the Red Wings this season. One of the few things they've been good at are where these shots come from, and it was a completely different story in this hockey game. There we go. You can see on here like the heat map for the Winnipeg Jets is all right in front of Alex Lyon. They were able to get on the inside of the defense and get a lot of shots right out in front. Detroit, on the other hand, and this isn't new, right? The Red Wings struggle to gain the zone, gain possession, and get sustained pressure. So when you look at the Red Wings heat map and you see that, okay, well, they played even and had stretches of like good puck possession in the offensive zone, didn't result in a lot of high danger chances or even medium danger chances. You can see most of Detroit's shot attempts in this game, because this is at 5-on-5, came from the point, because Winnipeg did a great job of keeping those things out there. So even while Detroit in bursts like Winnipeg had stretches of possession on either end, Winnipeg's was coming in front of the net. Detroit's was coming from the point. So it was just an awful game from a lot of different situations, and I'm getting tired of it, man. Like, we're 10 games in, 1 month in. They're 4-5-1. They're very much not out of it yet, but it just feels like we haven't had a complete game yet. The Edmonton game, we said was really their best game yet, but that was 20-30 minutes of good hockey before the back half they were on their heels again, and they lost in overtime. Like, we can talk about in this game and put a yarn together about how this was a game in which the Detroit Red Wings played back and forth hockey in chunks of possession for both teams. But when you look at the heat map and you see where the possession came from, it's just okay, clearly what I was watching isn't the same as what was happening in reality. The Jets were getting grade A opportunities. We were just getting shot attempts. There's a big difference there. Quality over quantity. Oh, and by the way, they had more quantity in the end too. So I'm just getting tired of it, man. I'm getting really frustrated early on in the season about I'm still waiting for that one game where the Red Wings dominate. They have not had a game yet where they have had a confident win. Even their wins feel like they're getting lucky.
Agreed.
So we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about notable performers. Stay tuned to segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. Got to talk to you guys today about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, I'm ready to move on to notable performers in this hockey game, both good and bad. Who stands out to you as a notable performer, brother?
Yeah, well, I actually want to start with a positive, if we can. I thought Berggren played maybe the best all-around game he's ever played at the NHL level. Mm-hmm. He was constantly making stuff happen in the offensive zone. He had multiple breakaways and rushes, at least 2, right? 2.
I think it was 2 2-on-1s.
Yeah, and obviously neither of them were executed well enough to get a goal, but he was constantly in the offensive zone and like I said, making stuff happen there. But I think the reason why I say that and why I want to give him so much credit is because I thought he was phenomenal defensively. He was so aggressive on the forecheck and was inducing turnovers time and time again. I cannot say enough good things about how he looked in this game. I legitimately think he was one of the best Red Wings on the ice tonight. Legitimately, that's how good I think he played. I was really, really, really impressed with how he looked.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I mean, the advanced analytics backs it up. In fact, the advanced analytics backs it up so much, I'm questioning how accurate this reporting is because, Jonathan Berggren, whatever his name is pronounced, I'll get it right one of these days once I get a definitive answer on how it's pronounced. Same thing with Johansson. He was far and away analytically better than his peers in this hockey game, and that includes the people who are on his line. He had a Corsi for percentage in this hockey game, Scotty, of 72%, and that was in 15 and a half minutes of 5-on-5 ice time. So, not the most on the team. He's not playing 21 like Dylan Larkin, but 15 minutes is, not a small sample size. That's not fourth-line minutes. He had 18 when he was out there, his line had 18 shot attempts for and 7 against at 5-on-5. His expected goals for percentage was 68.39%. And it was noticeable too. As you were saying, when you're watching the game, he was one of the best Red Wings out there. And that extends to his line as well. Marco Kasper was excellent in this hockey game. That third line was dangerous all night long and just could not convert. And like you were saying, he was great defensively too. On multiple occasions, and maybe part of this is because I'm always watching for Berggren's effort on defense, because that's something we've been critical of him for. But he was busting butt on one point, broke up a 2-on-1 to make it a 2-on-2, took the pass away. He did that several times. He, like you were noting with the poke check, knocking pucks away like crazy, getting involved in board battles. And that's not just, this game in a vacuum. I've noticed him trying to get involved throughout all season, and I've really appreciated that. But offensively, this was by far his best game. Like this game, I felt like we saw his hands for the first time. He had one shot that just barely missed the net as well. So this was by far his best game. And Marco Kasper, Michael Rasmussen, of course, not to discredit them, had a great game too. Marco Kasper was making things happen in the neutral zone, in transition, like actually getting and gaining the zone with possession. That third line looked really good this game. I really do believe that as well. Of course, they still equated to 0 goals, which kind of feeds into another problem. And they flashed this graphic on the screen, but the Red Wings top line has more goals than the rest of the forward lines combined, which is not great. Like, obviously, you're going to have your most of your goal scorers on your top line, so that's, highest percentage, but you can't have over 50% of your goals coming from one line, especially when one of those members of that top line has 1 goal in Lucas Raymond. So that means that it's, 5 goals for Larkin and 4 for DeBrincat, 9 goals.
DeBrincat got his 5th tonight, yeah.
So that's a total of 11 goals, and the rest of the forward core has 9. That's not
well. You
good.
can even throw Raymond out of it. That's 2 players that have 10, and the rest have 10. If you want to include Raymond in the other group, that is 2 players have matched the goal total of the rest of the forward group combined.
And like Lucas Raymond, he is feeding a lot of these goals. He had the primary assist on both power play goals in this hockey game.
Like an assist a game or something so far.
Yeah, he is playing very, very good hockey to start. So I'm not trying to be like, Lucas Raymond's not worth it. He's very much worth the $8 million. He's been producing crazy amounts of assists early in this season. But it's just really concerning, and this is something that we talked about, and I thought I talked myself into with Tarasenko and a full season of Kane, and if DeBrincat's luck goes back, like maybe the goal production from the depth areas would be replaced. But so far, Scotty, you've been right, where that is a huge question mark and concern so far, because the depth scoring has all but been non-existent outside of like a few goals from Andrew Kopp and JT Compher here and there. And those are the how many of the goals from the bottom 9 are from those two? Like, that's another big...
even like Kopp's goals are like fluky. Like he doesn't even have like a legitimate that was a good shot. Like
he had that one redirection last game. That was really nice.
Yeah, true. You're right. So yeah, I think that you're gonna need the production from obviously Vlad out with the flu in this game. I don't know if we said that yet. But like you're going to need him to come back and be that 20 to 25 goal scorer. You're going to need Berger to take a huge step forward. Like you're really relying on a lot of these guys to produce, I guess, just simply put. And you have not gotten that so far this season for sure.
Yeah, it's really frustrating, to put it simply. But something that did... So we're talking a lot about scoring, and one thing we've been really critical of so far this season is special teams, and I actually thought this was a good special teams performance by the Detroit Red Wings in this game, which is good because that's something that they need to get going if they want to have success in this season. They had 2 power play goals, 2 really nice power plays as well, one right off the faceoff at the start. Dylan Larkin ties his man up, Raymond goes in, gets the puck to Seider, who feeds it back to Raymond, set play, beautiful goal. Then another power play goal where Raymond took the shot, Cat with a beautiful redirection. So 2 power play goals. I know they gave up a shorthanded goal. That was 100% on Lyon. And I will completely say it. This was Alex Lyon, we know, is a streaky goaltender. He has incredible games, and he has really shaky games. This was the taketh away game from Alex Lyon. It was not a great game. I think that fourth goal against kind of broke him because the next two he gave up were just softies from the point. And that one on the penalty kill was that very first softie that he has to have. So even though they got scored on in the penalty kill, that was an excellent penalty kill up until that moment. And then they killed off the next one where they would score a second after it expires on another weak shot from the point.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Lyon is a notable performer for having a rough day at the office. And he's been one of the best goalies in hockey so far this season, which I think we all knew wasn't going to last through 82. So I think one of these, what?
I said, I think he came into the game with the second or third best save percentage in the league. Not
so
anymore, but
you knew that obviously wasn't going to last, and you were going up against a team that just lost its first game of the season. Its last game, it started off 8-0. So you're going up against a really good team, man. It's so wild looking back at the comments we made. What was it, before last season? So 2 off seasons ago, when we were like, they should probably just blow it up and rebuild and start over. That roster is disgusting, dude. That Winnipeg's that is a loaded roster. They have a lot of really good players, and it's just so funny to think back to they couldn't figure it out, and we were like, oh, they should probably just trade everybody and rebuild and whatever, and thank goodness we're not running a team, because that team, but just when they were, and obviously we know who's on the team, but it was just wild to see the what is it, the FanDuel network graphic when the game right before puck drop, when they were going through, and I was like, holy smokes, seeing them all written down next to each other, that is a good hockey team, man. There's a lot of talent on that roster. It was just seeing it visually really kind of reminded me of oh shoot, that's why they were so good last year, and why they started off 8-0 this year. That's a dang good team.
Yeah. And it turns out there was all kinds of rumors circulating about they don't like each other in the locker room, and coaching they ended up replacing their coach and doubling down on that core, and it's worked out tremendously for them. So good for Winnipeg.
Guess so.
Check out Locked On Winnipeg Jets if you want to hear more.
Talk about their airports.
Or lack thereof. We're going to go to segment 3, and when we return, we'll finish up our conversation about the Winnipeg Jets, so stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get more money on sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. Sign up today and get $50 instantly, and when you play $5. You don't even have to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that is code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, as far as notable performers go, I don't really know if anyone else comes to mind immediately.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Aljo on that one play, obviously got burned, but you mentioned that already. He's either got to go for the body or lift a stick, and he went 0 for 2 on that. So did not make very hard contact and completely whiffed on the stick lift. So that obviously burned. I mean, I thought Larkin had a good game for whatever that's worth, but you could kind of say that most nights when it comes to.
It's not really notable after.
Right, yeah, at some point it stops being notable. He obviously had a great goal, great shot in this game. But yeah, we talked about Vlad not playing. I think the defensive pairs, obviously we've already complained a little bit about the Petrie and Sherratt duo. We'll go more in depth on it, I'm sure, tomorrow when we kind of break down the Maatta trade and talk about what this means for. What are you doing?
I'm defeated. That's me.
Oh,
defeated.
Okay. You can go back to laying down then. That's fine. We'll talk about it a little bit more on tomorrow's episode and kind of talk about like what the blue line is just going to look like. I think going forward, Maatta was, even though he's a bottom 4 guy, was really bottom 2 guy. Is still a fixture on the blue line. So we'll talk about that a little bit more then. But I really think that there is no way you can go 82 games with Sherrod and Petrie as your second pair, man. I really don't think that. I think it would be asinine, to be honest with you. Like I think it would be absurd for this team to just be like, "Yep, nobody else is. We're not going to try anything else. It's just going to be these two the rest of the season." I think that would be an absolute joke.
I mean, what do you do though? Like we talked about this.
Try
the other day,
anyone else? I don't care.
Well, yeah, go try something new. But like the problem is anything you try, I don't know is gonna. I don't have confidence, and of course, try it. There's no harm in trying it. But I don't think, and we talked about this the other day, I don't think they have anything that is better than that situation on the second pair because they lack a second top 4 pair, just straight up.
Correct. Yeah. No, like I agree with you. I completely agree with you. And this goes back to roster construction. And again, we can go more in depth tomorrow, but like we said it on here over the summer. We're like, there's a lot of bodies on the blue line. I don't know how many of them are actually good. And so that's like kind of an issue. Like you're hoping that like rookie Aljo can be a second pair defenseman immediately. Like that's kind of I think a little I don't know. I just they continue to frustrate out there and. To your point, I'm not sure. I'm not sure there is like a guaranteed solution to it. But
you have a top pair, and now rather than 6, because you traded away Maatta, you have 5 bottom pair defensemen. I mean, Sherrod can. Here's the thing: is Sherrod is one of the few defensemen on your team who can play 20+ minutes a night. But just because he can play 20 minutes a night doesn't mean it's quality 20 minutes a night. And he's very hit or miss, kind of like Lyon. Like he'll have some games where you're like, that's a top 4 defenseman, but it's not consistent enough. Jeff Petrie was a top 4 D-man in his prime. He was a damn good top 4 D-man in his prime, but he's not in his prime anymore. And I said it last year, but he's better served as a third pair D-man, but we just have no other options. But like you said, try something first before you just give up.
You have to.
Try Justin Holl. I cannot believe these words are leaving my mouth. But try Justin Holl in the second pair. Try Albert Johansson on the second pair. I know he's got 5 games in his NHL belt, and he's played 14 minutes in this hockey game. But like, you got to try to shake it up because this second pair, as it stands, you're giving them all these minutes, and they're getting overexposed because they're not up to the task. I'm pretty confident that same thing is going to be said about every other defenseman that's not Seider and Edvinsson. You're going to try them. You're going to be like, they're not up to the task. But you got to at least try it first because Sherrod and Petrie they're getting caved in every single night. And in this game, they actually played the most minutes. And I think, I don't know, but the only reason I can think that on home ice, when you control matchups, that you'd be giving Sherrod and Petrie more minutes than Seider and Edvinsson is I'm wondering if the flu bug got Seider too. We saw this last year. When he got the flu, his minutes got reduced. This is a guy who's playing 25 to 27 minutes a night right now, suddenly came in at 22.5. It's not a huge cut down, but Jeff Petrie played 23 minutes in this game. Ben Sherratt played 22. Like, normally they're like at 19 or 20, and Seider and Edvinsson are like 25, 26 right now. So I wonder, too, how much of this team is still sick, because obviously Tarasenko did not play. They recalled Watson under emergency conditions. I don't know. This is a really hard month to fully gauge because we've talked about it. They played a gauntlet of playoff teams. They played the best team in the NHL last year twice in the New York Rangers. They played last year's Cinderella team in the Nashville Predators twice, and 2 of their 4 wins are against that team. They played this year's best team so far in the Winnipeg Jets. Like, they've played a gauntlet of Stanley Cup contenders or playoff contenders. There is not a single team outside of maybe the Pittsburgh Penguins, because they're proven to be kind of just booty, who you, by the way, lost to 6-3, but who aren't going to be in the mix come the trade deadline or comfortably in a playoff spot. So, like, they're not playing well, but they're also, because both can be true at the same time, also played a very difficult schedule. I wanted them to get 10 points, and we'll talk about this more tomorrow, but I wanted them to get 10 points because good teams, if you're a playoff contender, you believe you're a playoff contender, you got to go 500 against other playoff contenders to prove you're in the mix. They got 9 of the 10 points. They fell just short of that line. So they're still very much in the mix. But the way they're winning these games, and we talked about it back then, and clearly is proving now because you went from a 3-game winning streak to a 3-game losing streak, by the way, is not sustainable. So they got to figure it the F out. And if you don't figure it the F out soon, then we're talking about changes behind the bench, because every single game, win or lose, is playing out the same exact way. And if every single game, win or lose, is playing out the same exact way with this level of talent on this hockey team, that speaks to me that the system that they are running is not working. So
I would agree.
My patience is starting to wear thin. We said it this year.
Really?
The third year of any coaching staff is the litmus test. Cut the sassafras, mister.
I didn't notice.
Listen, I mean, we talked about it. There was always a distinct possibility that this year was a slight step back. But
yeah, but
they're not playing like it's a slight step back.
Yeah, this isn't slight step back so far. The record, I guess, kind of is only slight, which is, I don't know. I'm viewing as like a miracle more so than like a positive.
Yeah, how about it covers it?
Yeah, no, we ball. See you tomorrow.
We do ball, yeah. Tomorrow we got to preview the Buffalo Sabres game that takes place on Saturday. We'll break down our thoughts on the Maatta trade and talk a little bit more in depth about the month of October and where the Red Wings stand after its conclusion. So, same time, same
Happy
place.
Halloween.
It's your team every day. Happy Halloween.